Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotar Hatha Shishimati His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Let's offer our respects to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's recite the verses. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Maya Sakta Manapartha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Asamshayam Shamagram Mam Yatagnya Shashitachrinu Mata Parataram Nanyad Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Hidam Protam Shudre Mani Gana Iva Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam Tyajatante Kalevaram Tam Tam Yevaiti Kaunteya Sada Tadbhava Bhavitaha Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Ma Manushmara Yudhyacha Mai Arpita Mano Buddhir Mam Yevaishya Shashamshayaha Mahatmanastu Mam Partha Daivim Prakritim Ashritaha Bhajanti Ananya Manaso Jnatva Bhutadim Havyayam Ananyaschintayanto Mam Ejana Paryupashate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham Yad Karoshi Yadashnashi Yad Juhoshi Dadasi Yad Yat Tapasyasi Kaunteya Tat Kurushva Madarpanam Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvat Chantim Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanehi Name Bhakta Pranashyati Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate Iti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samanvitaha Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantascha Mam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mam Upayanti Te Tesham evanu kampartam aham ajnana jam tamaha nashyami atma bhavasto jnana dipena bhashvata mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjitaha nirvaira sarva bhuteshu yasa mamyeti pandava yetu sarvani karmani Mai sanyasya matparaha ananyenaiva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavamina chirat partha maya veshita chetasham mayeva mana adatsva mai buddhim niveshayaha Nivashishashmayeva ata urdvam na samshayaha. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Welcome back. 2 more weeks to go, and then we'll feel liberated. No, the purpose of doing devotional service is to keep on doing devotional service. That's why we say Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. So the purpose of studying Srimad Bhagavatam is to keep on studying Bhagavatam forever. The purpose of chanting Hare Krishna is to keep on chanting Hare Krishna. The purpose of eating prasad is to just maintain the body, that's all. Okay, so today we are going to continue our discussion, chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures. One devotee emailed me last week and asked, if you have read this chapter, you would see that Krishna uses only three verses to describe about the divine qualities, and he dedicates practically the remaining rest of the chapter 21 to demoniac qualities. So the devotee was asking me, why is Krishna stressing more on demoniac qualities than divine? I just replied back in a sarcastic way, because it's very close to our heart. That's why, Krishna knows what appeals to us more. But today you will see why Krishna dedicates more this chapter towards demoniac, describing about demoniac qualities, demoniac nature, than about divine. So the connection between the previous chapter, chapter 15 and 16, is, if you remember, in the last chapter we saw how this Krishna actually uses a metaphor to explain about the nature of this material world, that this world is like an inverted banyan tree. And we saw how the leaves, they are the Chandam Sethya Parnani. We saw how the leaves, they are like the Vedic hymns, the body of water on which this whole real tree is reflected on. They are the desires, our material desires. And this tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature, so on and so forth. In that description, Krishna explains how there are branches that are going upward, there are branches that's going upward, as well as there are branches that are going downwards. Those that are going upwards, they are going to increase our piety. They are going to help us go towards the higher realms of the creation, whereas the demoniac qualities or the demoniac natures, these lower branches, the more we water them, more it's actually going to pull us down completely. So we have to be careful which root we actually water on. So this chapter, Krishna would explain how to water the appropriate part of the tree. If we are interested to go down, to glide down to the hellish planets, to glide down to the lower species of life, what our nature would be, or what are the qualities of such a person. And if someone wants to really raise his consciousness to higher realms, what should be his consciousness? How is he supposed to actually water his devotional creeper? So that's the connection between the previous chapter and this chapter. Previous chapter explained about the banyan tree. This chapter is going to explain to us how we can actually climb up the banyan tree to go eventually to the Supreme Lord, to eventually go to the spiritual world. So the first 3 verses, there is if you look at your chapter summary, it says transcendental and demoniac qualities 16.1 to 6, demoniac nature 16.7 to 20, choice escaping to the supreme destination 16:21 to 24. There is a bit of an overlap. So if I can go with the same category, but I'll put a bit more detail for us to be easier in our discussion. So 1 to 3, it discusses about divine qualities. Four to 9 discusses about demoniac qualities. 10 to 18, demoniac activities. 19 to 22, consequences and cause of demoniac activities. And then the last two verses, 23 and 24, it describes about the choice that we have to choose between divinity and demoniac nature. So this is the chapter summary. This is a bit more detailed. There's some sub-categorization, but if you understand this, you can easily understand the whole chapter. Otherwise, especially this midsection, 10 to 18, some of the verses, it looks a bit repetitive. Once you go into second verse and third verse, we can easily get confused. When Krishna actually explains about the different nature of the demons, we'll go to that in detail once we go to that section. So first 1 to 3 talks about the divine qualities, 4 to 9 demoniac qualities, 10 to 18. Once a person is endowed with those qualities, how is he going to act? And once he acts like that, what are the consequences he's going to face? So that's the flow, 19 to 22. And after laying everything on the table, Krishna says, all right, choice is yours. What choice you're going to make? The red pill or the blue pill? So basically, that's how this chapter is laid out. Now, coming to that question, which I got emailed, why is Krishna spending more time on demoniac qualities than divine? In fact, let's quickly make a jump. If you go to verse 6, so there Krishna says, O son of Pritha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Even though Krishna is actually using only 3 verses to explain about divine qualities, Krishna is saying, I have explained to you in detail. Is Krishna lying here? What Krishna means by saying, I have explained to you in detail is, Krishna is saying, starting from 2nd chapter, he has been speaking about all these qualities. So if you take 2nd chapter, 54 to 72, he spoke about Sthita Prajna. In 3rd chapter, Krishna spoke about, great kings like Janaka. They have performed all their activities on this principle of being detached and then doing every activity as a matter of duty. 4th chapter, Krishna speaks Nishkama Karma Yogi. What are his Nishkama? What are his qualities? Chapter 6, Krishna was speaking about yogi. How yogi, by being connected with Krishna and consciousness, he never loses track of him. 10th chapter, we saw 4 and 5. Krishna speaks about godly qualities. Then we saw in chapter 12, 13 to 18, Krishna spoke about qualities of his devotees that endears them to him. In 13th chapter also we saw 8 to 12. Krishna spoke about items of knowledge. 20 items of knowledge. So there he spoke. Chapter 14 also Krishna spoke towards the end, 22 to 25, of qualities of somebody who transcended the modes of nature. So Krishna has dedicated quite a lot of verses from 2nd chapter all the way till 14th chapter. 2nd chapter, Krishna was speaking about how does the person sit, how does he walk, how does he conduct himself. So that's there. In 3rd chapter, he was telling to Arjuna that there is a need to do activity, but for someone like you who is beyond the attachment, you can actually choose to stay away. However, to set proper example, you still do your activity. Remember that discussion? So there, Krishna was actually glorifying some great kings like Janaka. So if you read that section, you'll actually see. 4th chapter also, Krishna speaks about qualities of Nishkama Karma Yoga. How does he inwardly, how he actually stays away from getting attached and everything. 6th chapter, Krishna speaks about yogi, how he remains balanced, how he controls his mind, how he doesn't eat too much, how he doesn't, and how he's actually controlling his mind, how he's dealing with all the reversals in his life and everything. He was saying about it. 4.5 spoke about godly qualities. There is a whole list Krishna gives. 12.13 to 18, Krishna speaks about different qualities of his devotees that endears them to him. 13.8 to 12, we saw those 20 items of knowledge. Amanitvam, Adambitvam, Ahimsa, Shanti, Arjavam. And then Krishna says of all the things, to do undivided and unmotivated devotional service. That's the topmost of all the qualities Krishna lists. And 14:22 to 25, Krishna also lists about the qualities of people who have transcended the modes of material nature. Now, on top of it, Krishna is also going to now discuss in 16th chapter 1 to 3 also about verses. Okay. Now, with this perspective, if you read the 6th verse, it will make sense. Yes, Krishna did explain about divine qualities in detail. Now, when it comes about qualities, there are 3 ways how people can acquire qualities. One is by nature. Nature means that one is born with. Second is by nurture. Nurture means that which one cultivates, that which one develops due to association, due to karma, due to the activities which a person does. And the third thing one actually gains by culture. The environment, the surrounding with which one is putting himself in. So one comes by culture, one comes from nature, one comes from nurture. So nature is what you are born with. Nurture is what you cultivate. Culture is more like your association. Each of these play an important role in shaping up a personality, shaping up the character of a personality, rather. So if you take nature, this is what we are born with. We absolutely have no control over. Okay, there are some karma we did in the past, and then we are born now. According to scriptures, people who are in mode of goodness in the previous life, most likely they are, take a guess? Cow. People, those who are in mode of passion, most likely they were in the previous life, tiger. And those in ignorance, monkeys. I'm not joking, seriously. So there are some qualities which we carry to come to the future lives. So that's something that we are born with. That's nature. We have absolutely no control, but these two we do have. One is based on nurture. What do we cultivate? Okay, who do we dig? What do we consciously cultivate, rather? Or even unconsciously? Where do we actually put? And how are we shaping up our destiny? So that's more nurture. And culture comes more with the surrounding. Tomorrow is Ram Navami. To explain about this, I can tell you a story. So when cultivation, Mother Sita, whenever in Dandakaranya, this is during the 14 years of exile when Lord Ram, Mother Sita and Lakshman, they are in the forest. Mother Sita used to walk just to remove all the thorns and everything on the way for her Lord Ram. Sometimes Lord Ram also will walk in the front. So when this happens, one day Mother Sita asks Lord Ram, you have given up your kingdom, come to the forest, but why are you still holding on to your bow? You should just let go. Lord Ram says, I'm a Kshatriya, so I'm still carrying, because I may go anywhere, but my nature also goes with myself, my duty also, sense of duty also goes. Even in the forest, there are a lot of demons, there are a lot of sages who are disturbing. So my duty is to give protection to them. That's why I'm carrying. Mother Sita tells a story to Lord Ram. She says, quoting one Puranic story, she says, at one point of time, there was a Brahmana in the past, eons ago, who had accrued enough merit that Indra started to feel scared. So in order to cause his downfall, what Indra did was, one day he just came. In those days, there's no bank. So what they do, if somebody is going to a foreign place, and they still have some valuable treasures, they go and entrust it to Brahmins. And the culture is such that nobody will go and plunder Brahmins also. Because they are truthful, they can curse them also. So even thieves won't go. They usually go for the Vaishyas if they want to steal. Kshatriyas, definitely they won't go. They may get killed, but there may be some instances. Usually Brahmanas are looked upon with respect and veneration, so they stay away. So Indra comes to this Brahmana, he gives him a sword. Tells him, I'm just entrusting it to you. I'm going on a mission. When I come back, I'll actually pick it from you. Brahmana says, all right. He takes it, puts it there. Indra goes, and Indra waits for something to happen. So the Brahmana, he keeps looking at this sword, looks very beautiful. First day, he just tries to feel the grip. And next day, he starts to carry it around just to see how it is. Third day, he started to practice. Within a week's time, by the time Indra comes, this Brahmana grew so much attached to the sword, he slowly started to lose all his... Because usually, that's the problem with being in Satya Yuga. You can commit sins even mentally. Brahmana, as soon as he starts to
come wave the sword, what does he usually think? Okay, there is an enemy here, I'm going to kill. One day Prabhupada is going on a morning walk. He sees these martial artists doing all these moves. And Prabhupada looks at them and says, and it was raining actually. Who are they fighting? Like that, Prabhupada makes fun of them when they practice. So here he was just practicing as if he is actually killing, but that little association with a passionate instrument, that was enough for him to lose his Brahminical qualities. And then Indra, having fulfilled his mission, he goes back happy to his heavenly abode. So simply by coming in contact with the bad association, simply by even accidentally coming, one can lose his qualities, comes under cultivation, even without somebody knowing. Many people, when they started to smoke cigarettes, they say, I just wanted to try it once, and that once never ended. One led to two led to three, hundreds, thousands, millions maybe. So that quality actually gets nurtured. So that one we have to be a little careful. Culture. That's culture. Something which people are actually born with. When there's another instance in Ramayana where after the whole war finishes, Lord Ram kills Ravan. He sends Hanuman to go and bring Mother Sita. Hanuman goes there to Ashoka Vatika, sees Mother Sita, and then conveys the news to Sita. And then Hanuman looks at all the different Rakshashis around, the she-demons or demonesses around. And then Hanuman asks Mother Sita permission for going and thrashing them, because they have literally abused Mother Sita, tortured her for a whole year. Mother Sita actually tells a story to Hanuman to drive the point to Hanuman that you still have to hold on to your compassion, never mind how other people react or other people act. So she says in a particular forest there was a hunter who once went for hunting a tiger. And then the tiger somehow sensed the presence of a hunter and it started chasing. He tripped and fell. And as he was going through this motion, he left his weapons. And now he is Nirayudapani. Nirayudapani means without any weapon. So all he could do is, now to protect his life, he just climbed up on top of a tree. Much to his dismay, he sees a big bear sleeping on the tree. So when he climbs up, he sees a bear there. Bear can also attack him. In fact, they say polar bear, it's the mightiest of all the land animal. So he sees a bear sleeping, and then he sees tiger now. Tiger, having sensed the hunter is there, so tiger was just circling around the tree. So at that point, tiger then appeals. She wakes up the bear, and he says, look, you're also in the forest, I'm also in the forest, we both are wild animals. You just push the hunter down, I will pounce on him, I'll kill, and we can share. So that's the agreement which tiger proposes. But the bear, being noble in character, replies back saying, no, yes, I'm a wild animal. Nevertheless, this person has come and taken my shelter. So I can't backstab him, so I'm not going to actually push him down. So now, tiger plays a different tactic. Now tiger appeals to the hunter. Now bear, after telling this to tiger, bear goes to sleep. So now the tiger appeals to the hunter saying look, I'm hungry. I need to eat something. I understand you are scared for your life. That's fine. Why don't you just push the bear down? I'll attack the bear and I'll eat the meat of the bear. And hunter, being such a low-graded, low-conscious person, he actually kicks the bear, attempting to push the bear down. And as the bear was still asleep, it comes falling halfway, immediately becomes conscious, and he catches hold of the branch, climbs up again, goes back to the same spot, and continues to sleep. Now the tiger now appears back to the bear. See, I told you, don't trust this man. We both are wild animals. So then he says, now you have seen, you were not ready to backstab him, but he had already let you down, double-crossed you. So now delay no more, push him down. Let's have a good feast. Now the bear says something interesting. So moral of the story here is, Mother Sita says, the bear actually replies back to the tiger saying, look, the hunter showed his nature. Just because he showed his nature, low nature, doesn't mean I have to change mine. My nature is Atiti Deva Bhava. I will take care of the guest as if he's been God sent, as if he's God, he's a demigod. This is my nature, I'm just going to hold to that. So here you see there is a choice, there is a clash that's actually happening between a demoniac and divine quality. Still the bear is holding. Very unusual story, but Mother Sita said it has to be true. So it's not a made-up story. Then she tells to Hanuman These she demons, they are just acting based on their nature. Just because they show their nature doesn't mean we have to stoop so low. Just let them go. And Hanuman lets them go, worships Mother Sita, and he goes his way back to Lord Ram. So the qualities which we acquire can come with one of these three ways, but this is something we are endowed with, but the choice is still ours. What we are going to do to cultivate good qualities, that's ours. Even in the working stage, what choices are we still going to make? We may not be perfect, but then every situation actually presents to us with the situation, whether we want to be godly or we want to be demoniac. So the first three verses, Krishna lists the divine qualities, and if you read Prabhupada's purports, Prabhupada nicely clubs them into different varnas and ashramas. So we are going to quickly go through them. Abhayam, Sattva, Shamshuddhir, Jnana Yoga, Vavastitihi. So, Abhayam, Sattva, Shamshuddhir, Jnana Yoga, Vavastitihi. So there are 4 ashrams and there are 4 varnas. What are the 4 ashrams? There is Sannyasa, Grahastha, Brahmachari, and Vanaprastha. I'm just writing in the same order in which these qualities are given. And if you go to the translation, you can read the purports in your leisure. We can quickly go through these qualities, at least some of them. So fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge. So the first 3 qualities, they are for the sannyasis. Okay, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge. That's for the sannyasis. Charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice. All 3 of them, they are for grahasthas. So if you read the purport, that's how Prabhupada combines them. So the first verse in effect was for the 4 ashramas. So Abhayam, Sattva, Shamshuddhir, Jnana Yoga, Vavastitihi. That's for sannyasis. Dhanam, Damascha, Yagyascha. That's for grahasthas. Swadhyaya, which is study of the Vedas, that's for the brahmacharis. And tapa, or austerity, that's for the vanaprasthas. Brahmacharis is student form of life, grahastha is householder, vanaprastha is retired life. When you go to the forest, you live there, you can still be with your partner, but you keep your life very, very simple. And then you have sannyasis, point where you give up everything, and then you just take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So this is how Srila Prabhupada combines. If you read the purport, Prabhupada nicely goes through them. Now, it doesn't mean that grahasthas can be fearful. It doesn't mean brahmacharis can be fearful. Not in that sense. All these qualities are equally applicable for all the varna and all the ashramas. Nevertheless, some of the qualities are especially meant to be cultivated by people of specific ashramas. Okay, so that's because their lifestyle actually allows them to do. Their lifetime rather requires them to do. Okay, Swadhyaya, it's given for student, which is brahmacharis. They have more time for studying, so that's their primary duty. So they study and then they may become in future either vanaprastha, grahastha or sannyas. At that point of time, they can then disseminate the knowledge to the general population like that. Okay, so each of these qualities, they are equally applicable for everyone. Nevertheless, stress is given to certain ashramas because during that ashrama, they are meant to cultivate that quality. That's how you see. But holistically, everyone should be mastering all of them. Okay, because they are conducive for divinity, to cultivate divinity in us. So same way, if you actually see the rest of the qualities, there is arjavam, which is simplicity, and ahimsa, satyam. They are all qualities of brahmanas. So this is 4 ashramas. Now, Krishna is speaking about the 4 varnas. Varnas are Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So arjavam, which is simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, these are all qualities for brahmanas. Freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion of all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty. So all those qualities, they're all Brahminical. Tejas or chivalry, that's for the Kshatriyas. Vigor in English, so that's for the Kshatriyas. Forgiveness, fortitude, they're all for the Kshatriyas. Forgiveness is also given for the Brahmanas also. Then we have Saucham. Saucham is cleanliness. That's for the Vaishyas. They should be clean in their dealings. And then Adroho, Nati Manita, or not expecting any honor. That's for the Shudras. So primarily you see Arjavam and Ahimsa, they are for simplicity and non-violence. They are for the Brahmanas. For Kshatriyas, it's Tejas or vigor. For Vaishyas or the mercantile community, it's cleanliness. And for Shudras, it's not expecting any honor. They should just do their service as a matter of duty. If any happiness that comes their way, if any praise that comes their way, they can take it, but they should not be running after it, being attached to it. So these are the qualities which Krishna gives here. So Prabhupada explains this in detail in each one. So the first quality, Abhayam, we're not going to go through detail, just one of them. It's given as fearlessness. Fearlessness doesn't mean you have no fear at all, not in that sense. Fearlessness means that we have a greater cause and we are focused on that greater cause. With that strength of that focus, we are not going to let anything else come and disturb us. Anything else going to come between us and that goal. That's what fearlessness means. So for a sannyasi, because he is focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in actually doing devotional service, in giving this knowledge to everyone, so he is not fearful of anything, basically. Okay, so fearlessness doesn't mean like, if a snake comes, naturally we have to run. There is a certain amount of fear that's involved there. So that discrimination has to be there, even if someone is a sannyasi. So here fearlessness shouldn't be taken as like audacity. We have to be bold, but not but with intelligence. Okay, so if a snake comes, naturally we have to run. So that level of fear is needed. But here fearlessness means that we have a greater cause, and keeping our focus there, we are able to bypass all the petty fears that comes our way. Okay, like that. So we can see application for each one of them like that. Now 4 to 9, Krishna speaks about demoniac qualities. So the fourth verse, pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance, these qualities belong to those of demoniac nature. Dambo, with the A. Dambo means pride. Darpa, arrogance. The difference is between pride and arrogance. In Vedic scriptures, it's actually given. Dambo means you don't have good quality, but you put yourself as if you have a good quality, as if you have some noble qualities, and you expect some praise also in return. So that's Damba. Darpa means you may have some good qualities, but you still expect some honor for that. Okay, so one is without anything, you still expect something back. Okay, Radhanath Maharaj, he says, sometimes you do devotional service and you get praise. Sometimes you do devotional service and you don't get praise. How many of you have this experience of actually not doing much, but still being glorified very much? And it feels very good. There's a karma involved. I'll tell you the other half. The other half is, how many of you have experience of doing something, really putting a heart there, but nobody notices? That's the karma. So Radhanath Maharaj says, because we are now attached to taking, something comes our way, we happily go and take it. Because we go and take it, what it also means is that the karma will actually come and play. Because you got something which you didn't deserve, you're also going to lose something which you deserved also. Okay, so each of these quality, Krishna, which actually comes speaking here, we have a trace of that. I'm being very polished here. We all have, okay, in immense quantity. But by studying scriptures, chanting Hare Krishna, doing devotional service, we can slowly get rid of them. So it's important that we understand that these are the demoniac qualities. We have traces of them. There's always this inner conflict we all have. But every time we actually have that, we have to put scriptures ahead of us and we understand, no, this is demoniac and this is demon. All of us, even when we do bad, we can justify also. We think like, but I'm a good devotee. We are all. But then what determines something is good or bad? That's why Krishna says we have to go with the scriptures. Okay, so Dambo, Darpa, Abhimana, Krodha, Parushya. Again, Krodha means anger. Parushya is harshness. We show harshness through the speech. We show the anger through the speech. So that is Parushya. Just like Damba and Darpa, they both are related. One is having some good quality and taking credit for it, and other one not having anything, still taking credit for it. So similarly, Krodha means anger, and second is harshness. Anger means, we know what anger is. Harshness here refers to anger in speech. Okay, when the same anger is being expressed through the speech, it's called a parushya or harshness. Yes, Mataji. Conceit is conceit basically is like, you're hiding something basically. So that's conceit. Duplicitousness, you can say. You lack integrity. That's conceit. Harshness and ignorance. Ignorance is ajnanam. Whereas if you take the divine qualities, there is a direct opposite of that. You see jnana yoga vyavasthitihi or swadhyaya. So if you look at the divine qualities, that it said either you cultivate knowledge or you study the Vedic scriptures, one or the other, or you be situated in knowledge. So that's divine. Whereas the opposite of that is ignorance. If somebody has ignorance, then that is considered to be a demoniac quality. Somebody has to work on it. Okay? So Krishna puts in a nutshell all these demoniac qualities in one. And then now he'll elaborate on them. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac ones, they'll pull us down to the lower branches of the inverted banyan tree. And then 6th verse we already saw. 7th, those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done, what is not to be done. Now, make a note of this point, because the same point Krishna is going to say towards the end of the chapter. And he's going to give a solution for that, which is studying scriptures. One primary defining quality for somebody endowed with the demoniac nature is he or she doesn't know what should be done and what not to be done. Usually, so what to do and what not to do. So that's a big question. Because of want of knowledge, because they don't have one single source of truth, one single source of knowledge, generally, if you study the normal population, they usually make decisions. They usually decide what to do and what not to do based on a certain trend. Usually, sometimes it can be based on their own mind or mood. I think this is the right thing to do. Okay, some people may do that. Sometimes it can be based on the trend or fashion maybe. Everyone is doing, so I also want to do. Sometimes people may think like that. Sometimes people may say, I'm actually doing it based on tradition. It has been done this way all along, so I'm also doing it. Sometimes it can be based on some sort of culture logic. Yeah, I've thought it through. This is the right way to do. Each one of them, they are bound to change. Our mood can change. Fashion keeps changing. We can't really follow. Everyone is doing, so let me also do. We can't do that. Tradition, there are many traditions which are later proven to be wrong also. Okay? In some tradition, killing animals may be something which has been followed all along for no reason. Doesn't mean we have to continue to do. Okay, so tradition is there. Logic, what appeals to us now at this point of time based on whatever knowledge we have may not appeal to us later. Okay, when we grow. Have you got that experience? Sometimes you even form an opinion about a person and you may have your own rationale for forming it and it may be right also. But usually our mind, when it starts to say something is wrong, it extrapolates it. Little bit, it just expands it. And then later on you realize, actually the person was good by nature. It just happened that as a one-off incident, he or she did something wrong. But I took that and I expanded it as a big thing. Have you got that experience? Anyone? All of us. In scriptures, there is a story. There was once a king who was giving charity to people. He had all the brahmanas lined up and he was giving charity. In this particular time, he was giving annadan, food. And as he was giving food, there was an eagle that was flying above, carrying a dead snake, which it killed. Now, from the body of the snake, drops of poison was spilling on the ground. And as the eagle was passing above, one drop of poison fell on the food. And the king, without the knowledge, he scooped it out and gave it to one of the brahmanas. And one of the brahmana took, and he died. So the king was feeling very sad, very morose. He was consulting with all the priests and the ministers, what's the best way for him to come out of this brahmahatya dosha, or the sin that one incurs by killing a brahmana. So as this was going on, in Yamaloka, Yamaraj has different departments. One is Chitragupta. He clicks pictures of all activities that we actually do. He also has a scribe who actually writes, who then designates, based on this information that's fed to the next department, he then designates, he writes the karma for each one of them. So in this particular instance, when he actually gets the picture, he thinks, who is at fault? Who should I write this sin against? Against whose name? Is the eagle at fault? Then he says, no, eagle is not at fault. Eagle just was carrying its food. There was no intention. Is the snake at fault? Snake is already dead. How can it be at fault? So he brushes that aside. No, neither of them. Is the king at fault? Actually, king had best intention. He was just waiting for the next Brahmana to come. He came. It just so happened in between that, a drop of poison fell and he scooped it out, resulting in the death of Brahmana. So king is also not at fault. So he was always in this dilemma. He didn't know what to do. He just put it aside. Work in progress. And he keeps looking. In the same kingdom, there were few guests who came. And then as they were coming inside the kingdom, they stopped a lady. And they asked, what's the way to go to the palace? And the lady tells the guests, the visitors to that kingdom, yeah, please go straight. There you will come across a huge palatial building. That's where the king who killed many Brahmanas, the killer of Brahmanas, that's where he resides. And guess what happened? Now, this assistant of Yamaraj, he thinks, okay, you take this in now. So he writes it against her name. Fault finding is so dangerous, actually. So here is an instance of somebody who actually did all good activities. Accidentally he does something. Now, somebody may even intentionally do, but it's still an accidental thing only. That's why Krishna says, Apichet su duracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak, sadhu revasa mantavya, samyak vivasito hisa, which means, even if someone does the most abominable activity, if he becomes fixed in this process of bhakti yoga, he should be considered saintly. Then Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma. Krishna says, whoever comes, he never falls down also. Krishna also assures that. So whenever we deal with each other, we may see some devotee doing some fault, some of our friends may actually do some fault, but we have to just overlook. We should always be in a mood to give benefit of doubt. Of course, we need to balance it with discrimination. We don't have to hate the person. We have to still act based on discrimination. So that is there. So that balance has to be maintained, of course. But we don't need to develop a hatred. A person did sin. Why should we actually commit sin? In this case, there were 3 participants in the whole activity of killing a Brahmana, but all of them went scot-free. And it was one lady who just was finding fault of the person. So that part we have to be careful. So if you look at the list of the divine qualities, you'll also find one quality that says no fault finding. We should never find fault with that. There are a lot of stories. As I was reading, I was thinking 20, 25 stories from Puranas. We need more time for that. There are many instances of scriptures where it actually explains about different stories, about different personalities, how by exhibiting even 1 or 2 of these demoniac qualities, how it caused actually their fall down. And there are many instances of different personalities who by showing even a tinge of these divine qualities, how it elevated them. So many instances also. We can discuss some other time. So this is one primary quality of, in fact, the most defining quality for somebody who is a demon. They have no understanding of scriptures. They have no understanding of what to be done and what not to be done. And because of that, they go with whatever they think is good. I think this is right, or this is what everyone else is doing. I think this is what we have been doing all along. And I have figured it out. I think this is the best thing to do. But none of this can be accepted as a valid argument against the law of karma.
Just a point there, there's also a category of people who are innocent. So now if someone either hasn't had exposure to the scriptures or doesn't know, they're ignorant, so they're innocent, I mean, they could still fall into that category, couldn't they?
Yeah.
So would that make them demonic?
Good question. Prabhupada gives the example. Let's say somebody comes to Australia. In a 60-kilometer zone, he just drives in 80. And he's pulled aside. If he says, look, I don't know the law of the land, whose fault is that? Okay, you are in this place, so it's your responsibility for you to know. Okay, that's one level of answer. Law of karma acts slightly differently. This is man-made law. Law of karma goes based on if a person is actually doing fault, if he's a Brahmana, there's a different level of punishment. If he's a Vaishya, different level of punishment. Kshatriya, different level. Shudra, different level. So even in Mahabharata, there is this story. Once a case comes to the court of Hastinapur of an instance of killing a Brahmana, but 4 people are involved. One from each of these Varnas. So first all 4 of them come. Then Vidura takes this opportunity to keep a test for both the crown princes. One is Duryodhana and one is Yudhishthir Maharaj. So then he tells to Duryodhana, okay, solve the case. So he comes and inquires, do you all agree that you killed? Then everyone says, yeah, we all agree. Then he says, all right, case solved, sentence all of them to death. And he goes and sits in his seat. Then Vidura calls Yudhishthir Maharaj. Yudhishthir Maharaj asked them, so okay, so now tell me, identify your Varna. Then one says Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So then Shudra, he lets him go. Because he's just a servant. He doesn't know what he's doing. So he gives leniency to him. To a Vaishya, then he sends him to the jail to be whipped and then to pay fine. Likewise, he gives a different level. And to Brahmana, he gives the heaviest punishment, telling, you know that you are not the body, you are supposed to be the most intelligent person, you are supposed to be the head of the society. Nevertheless, you acted in a very indiscriminative way here. So he takes the maximum punishment, like that. So law of karma is much more intricate. So to answer your question, if a person does an activity without knowledge, the karmic reaction will be relatively less, but there is still karmic reaction.
So just the example you gave earlier, so, no one was at fault because no one really...
Correct.
There was no
Yep.
intention.
Yep.
But then what about the example of the Brahmana who accidentally donates in charity a cow twice?
That's a king, Nirga.
Okay.
So that's a king. That's in Krishna book we see the story of King Nirga. So he gives the same cow twice. Okay, because you brought that story up. As I said, when I was reading this, there are a lot of stories that comes to mind. Okay, I'll quickly solve that. Answer that question. So in that case, what happens? So in Nirga's case, that's the king. He comes, the same cow, he gives the cow once. So he gives to the Brahmana, but one of the cow, he gives hundreds of cows. One cow comes, again joins back in the same herd. He gives in a different herd, and then he gives the same cow twice to a different Brahmana. Now both the Brahmana fight, and both the Brahmana come to the king and tell him, I want that particular cow. And Nirga actually tells, don't worry about it, I can give you as a replacement, give you 1,000, 10,000. Still they were not happy. I want that, like a kid, I want that particular thing. Especially when you break something, that's the thing they want. Exact same color. Brahmanas also sometimes they are attached. So then in this case, that's what happens. And then Nirga couldn't do anything, and both the Brahmanas curse him. And Nirga thinks like, hey, do I really deserve it? And then he goes, you fast forward, he then dies, goes to Yamaloka. Yamaraj actually tells him that like, look, I can go through, you have done a lot of some pious activities. There's no end to the merits which you have accrued so far. Which means Yamaraj actually tells him, if you start enjoying in heavenly kingdom for all your merits, you can keep going on and on and on until end of cosmic destruction, literally. He says that's how much you have actually accrued. But accidentally you have done one sinful activity of giving both. So there is a small punishment that's involved. Now, Nirga thinks little bit materialistically. He thinks, usually when you have a plate full of nice prasad, what item will you take first and what is it that you will save for the last? The best, usually we save for the last. So what Nirga thinks is, what's the point in enjoying now always still feeling disturbed? So let me go, first get the punishment and then I can enjoy eternally. That's his crooked consciousness. So then Yamaraj says, all right. And then he makes him a lizard. He's like, what? But then he then becomes a lizard, but fortunately because this is... he did it accidentally. He was still born as a lizard, but in Dwaraka. And he got the opportunity to be delivered directly by Krishna. But nevertheless, he was still attached. If you read his prayers, not really prayers, his conversations with Krishna, Krishna touches him because one day the ball falls in a well. All the little kids of Krishna, they come and ask him to pick up the ball. He goes there, picks up the ball. But as he picks up, Krishna actually sees the lizard. He touches him. And then he gets his body again. King Nirga gets the body again. So now Nirga comes and he introduces himself to Krishna. By the way, I am Mr. Nirga. Who are you? And then he says, this is what he says. With that arrogance, he speaks to Krishna. And he says that like, I am this great king from eons ago. I ruled such a big kingdom. I have done so many different sacrifices and everything. He doesn't stop there. Bhagavatam verse says, he tells to Krishna, perhaps you might have heard about me. He says that also. When I read that, I was like, hey, you really deserve to be a lizard man, But that's what he's telling to Krishna. I was thinking, what Krishna must have thought. Yeah, I did. And then he says, thank you very much. My heavenly kingdom is waiting. And he just goes and he continues to enjoy. So that's what happened to Nirga. So even there was a consideration that's actually given to him. First of all, he was given a choice by Yamaraj because the sin was accidental. Second, even though he still went to enjoy to go through the punishment for the sin, he still ended up in the backyard of Krishna himself. Okay, we'll move on. So 8th verse, they say this world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. So there are three words that's used. Asatyam. Asatyam means unreal. Satyam means truth. Asatyam means not truth, which is unreal. This world is unreal. Apratistam, we say prana pratishta, which means you establish something. Apratishtam means there's no foundation at all. So this is unreal, it has no foundation, and Anishwaram, Jagatahur Anishwaram, no God. So three things they believe, because they don't know what to do and they don't know and what to do and what not to do. Why? Because there is no scriptural knowledge. Because of that, they conclude that there is no God, there is no foundation in this world, and there is no asatyam. There is no truth in this world, literally. So what do they conclude as the cause, as the goal of this life? We'll see in the next verse. If you go to the next verse, following such conclusions, the demoniac who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence. Remember, we were studying this. Intelligence, either we borrow it from sadhus, or we study from scriptures, or we get realizations. Or if we do devotional service, Krishna will also give. Because they don't accept God, none of this is possible, actually, for them. So there is no intelligence for them. Engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. And Krishna will elaborate on what he means by unbeneficial and destructive work here. Basically, because they say asatyam, apratishtam and anishwaram, they conclude that because there is no God, no foundation, nothing, there is no good, no bad. So they conclude naturally that the prime goal for this entire life is simply lust. Simply find ways to come enjoy. Generally, what does Vedic scriptures teach? There is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So these are the four arthas. So dharma is a religious principle. Once first stage is like you study the religious principle, then you can then earn. Once you know dharma, then you earn. You collect wealth, you collect money, everything. And then with all of those facilities, you then fulfill your desires. Once you are done with all of this, then you actually, you'll get liberated. You then aim for the liberation. So this is the four stages, so to speak. In one's progress, this is totally based on Karma Kanda. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, he said this is the fifth stage, Prema. But usually it's just the four. Now, because they don't accept God, there is no dharma, because there is no scriptures, there is no basis, apratishtam. And because they don't accept God, there is no moksha either. So of the four, they take only two. One is artha and second is kama. There is only money and there is lust. In second chapter itself, we actually saw bhoga and aishwarya. Remember? This is aishwarya. And this is bhoga. And Krishna says, Bhogaishwarya prashaktanam taya pahrita chetasham vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhavna vidiyate. For someone who is too much attached to wealth and enjoyment, the resolute determination for practicing Krishna consciousness doesn't happen. So this is no resolution or no resolute determination to practice Bhakti Yoga. So this is how they end up as. And Krishna spoke about this in second chapter itself, actually. Vyavasayatmika buddhi, that series of verses we actually saw. So it's the same. So this is how they end up as. So the next section is all about how they are going to actually make money and how they are going to enjoy lust. So this is artha and this is kama. This is just money and this is lust, basically. So this is artha is money and kama is lust. So the next whole section from section 10 to 18, Krishna is going to go through their mentality of somebody endowed with such qualities here.
Sorry, could you just explain what that top word meant again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem. Aishwarya.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so as I said, there are four stages here, dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So Karma Kanda in Vedic scriptures, it actually teaches one to go through each one of these stages. Okay. So the idea is that first one understands the religious principle. It's interesting. First people are taught, they are educated before they go and earn money. Educated means educated in spiritual science. For us it happens a little mixed. now, but better late than never for us. But technically, in Vedic times, first 25% of their life, they focus only on this. Okay, so dharma. Then, after 25% of their life finishes, the remaining 25%, they do these two, artha and kama. Then, by this time, they would have actually, even if somebody is a householder, by this time, then they actually become a vanaprastha, or they become retired stage. So the last two stages of life is simply for moksha, vanaprastha and sannyas. The grahastha stage is for these two, artha and kama. But the idea of this is, it's not that one person starts to enjoy lust and he's going to keep on enjoying more and more and more. The idea is that because they learned the principle, they now try to enjoy. They will understand the truth behind the futility of material enjoyment. That's the idea. So naturally, they'll feel detached and they'll come to the conclusion, I've studied about it, I've experienced it, I better let go everything and let me just go. This is the idea. So this is how the progression goes generally. But then they get stuck here. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes and gives the actual goal of life. Goal of life is not just liberation. Goal of life is to become a devotee, which is prema pumartha mahan, which is to cultivate Krishna prema. So this is the progression generally. First and then second, then this one comes in the last stage basically, excluding this. But in Krishna consciousness, irrespective of whatever stage you are in, you always focus on prema only. This is Krishna consciousness. What I'm talking here is typical karma kanda section only, which has got nothing to do with devotional service at all. Okay. Now, because even to do karma kanda, somebody has to still accept the authority of Vedas. They should at least accept the demigods. Forget about Krishna. At least demigods they should accept. Now, here we are talking about people who are demoniac, who have no regard for scriptures at all. That's why Krishna first he tells the prelude for who these people are. Apratishtam, Anishwaram, Asatyam. They conclude this world is unreal. They conclude this world has got no controller at all. And they conclude that there is no foundation for this world at all. Which means technically, moksha means you are talking about afterlife. So when they conclude something as unreal, what's there after that? So they reject that. They reject dharma also because they reject God. There's no principle, no scriptures, nothing. So all that is left for them is only these two, artha and kama. Okay. Now Krishna, they are all synonyms. Artha, money, Aishwarya, they are all synonyms actually. Now in second chapter, Krishna actually says, somebody who is attached, Krishna will say in this chapter also, but somebody who is attached to Aishwarya and Bhoga, or Bhoga means enjoying tendency, kama, and Aishwarya means wealth. Somebody who is too much attached to that material desires, the resolute determination to actually practice Krishna consciousness doesn't occur in the heart. We ourselves may have experience also sometimes. You think, I'll come listen to the lecture, but then sometimes you will see feast is being served outside. Even though feast is also spiritual, but sometimes we do spiritual sense gratification also. We think, let me just take prasad and come back. And then you go a little bit more, we are wasting time. And we come inside only to feel sleepy, So we ourselves have that experience. Sometimes we feel like sleeping more, but then the next morning we'll actually struggle to wake up and chant. So we have experience with that, okay, in our own tiny way, even inside Krishna consciousness. But for them, this is the goal completely. So that's why Krishna says this is a horrible lifestyle, okay, because there's no end to it. Because now there's no moksha, there's no knowledge of this. All they will think is, let me keep on adding fuel to the fire, which means let me try different ways to enjoy lusty desires, different ways how to actually expand money. But then it's just going on a vicious cycle now. There's no exit route out of this one. Okay, so that's what Krishna says. After this prelude, Krishna will then talk about the psychology of people. So that's why we said verse 10 to 18, it speaks about the nature of such people. Taking shelter of insatiable lust. Interesting. Kama ashritya. We are supposed to take shelter of devotional service. Take shelter of Srimati Radharani. Take shelter of Guru. Shelter of Krishna. But here, because of lack of knowledge, what do? Kama ashritya. If you read 10th verse, it says, taking shelter of lust. Which means that is the goal, that is the process. There's nothing else beyond that. Most of us come from similar background. Because we also didn't know. That's why this knowledge is so important. Knowledge that we are not the body, we are the soul is important. Knowledge that there is life after life, that's also important. Knowledge about there is a spiritual world, that's also important. That's why this knowledge is so important. So the foundational principle, that's why we said, for somebody traversing on this path of demoniac nature is lack of scriptural knowledge. And they don't know, they lack discrimination. Remember, we discussed this point before. One of the biggest effect of studying scriptures is, helps us actually develop the power of discrimination to understand what to do and what not to do. Okay, so because they lack that due to lack of knowledge, they just stick to these two. And Krishna is now talking about Kama Ashritya. Krishna will also talk about 13, 15 verses. You will see Krishna also speaks about what all they do to actually accrue money. Krishna will speak on practical terms. So verse 11 and 12, they believe that to gratify the senses is the prime necessity of human civilization. Thus, until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable. The modern principle of modern economics is that the resources to fulfill the desires is limited, but our needs and requirements is always unlimited. So there will always be this futile chase for fulfilling enjoyment, but it will always remain elusive only. Okay, so Krishna here he's saying prime necessity of human civilization, thus until the end of life, their anxiety is immeasurable because all they know is just lust, all they know is just money, they'll keep on chasing after that. There's nothing more in their life, so their life will remain unfulfilled till they die. Bound by a network of hundreds of thousands of desires. If you remember the tree metaphor which Krishna says, what is this whole material reflection or the reflection of the entire tree? What is it supported by? It's supported by our material desires only. The problem with desires is if you do any activity, usually we think about an idea. We think about, okay, that's a good thing to do. And we start to do. And then we'll start to emotionally feel connected to that also. And we put all our energy. Our energy will always flow wherever our emotions flow. Now, because these people, they have material desires. People endowed with the demoniac qualities, because all they have is just material desires, their whole thought process, their whole emotion will be simply going towards enjoying only. Many people you will see, whenever the stock market crashes, they'll get heart attack because they lost the money. There's no basis for their life now. What will they do? People go through depression. People go through so many different emotions, negative emotions. In other words, they just lose their power of creating something positive. They lose their power of actually enjoying in this world. Their whole desires is simply based on money. So that's how now Krishna will link in the next 3 verses. Now, because their desires, the fulfillment of the desires is solely dependent on money, they'll go to any extent to accrue this one. So that's the link to the next 3 verses. Krishna says, 13 to 15, the demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much mine is now, and it will increase in future, more and more. And then he will then resort to unfair means to accrue wealth. He'll resort to even unfair means to even eliminate his enemies, killing them. And then in between also, interestingly, Krishna says, I am the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifice, I shall give some charity. Krishna knows about the mentality of such people also. Krishna is predicting this 5,000 years ago. If we think such people exist only these days, Krishna is saying, no, human nature is the same. They existed even in those days. Now, is it really wrong? So Krishna looks like he's making fun here of people who give money, just as a punya. It's same Krishna, he also said in 9th chapter, Yat karoshi yad dakshinashi, whatever you do, whatever you give, Krishna said. In 12th chapter, we saw how merciful he is. He was glorifying even charity, at least to develop the quality of giving out. Looks like there is a contradiction here. Can you see that? Here, Krishna is making fun of somebody that he'll just give something in charity, and then I'll do this yagya, and that way he'll feel good. Correct? Looks like there is a contradiction here. Is that your question? Yeah, I'm coming there. So there is some contradiction which Krishna, it seems to be. But actually point here is, in 12th chapter, Krishna, when he actually said, at least do this. If you can't do, at least do any activity, any philanthropic activity, at least develop the act of giving. Okay, so that's the least, that's like the bottommost level you can think. Here we are talking about a person who is even lower than that. He is saying, I will give money. Why? So my prestige will increase. He's not even developing that sense of giving. So it's not condemned altogether. There is still some benefit. But the idea of Krishna telling you can give something in charity there, be it to a proper recipient, improper recipient, doesn't matter. At least develop this habit of giving. Krishna was going he was like, making himself more accessible, so much. Here he is talking about a person who is giving just for his own prestige only. So if somebody goes with that desire, Krishna is saying, which means his whole mood of charity is driven by honor, which means if he keeps giving, if he doesn't get the enough advertisement, enough coverage in newspaper, he's going to stop giving. So Krishna is saying that is not so conducive. It's even lower than the person who gives out just as a punya if he gives to some cause. So in that sense, Krishna is discouraging. Nevertheless, Krishna, you will see in the next 2 chapters, Krishna will say, but please don't stop. Be it goodness, passion, ignorance, at least keep giving. Okay? Yagya, dana, tapa should never be stopped. Krishna says even for people in renounced order, Krishna says they purify everyone's existence, we should still give. But compared to all the different levels Krishna has said in the past, this is considered to be the lowest. So Krishna is not so much encouraging, but he's still not telling it, don't even do it. Okay, it gives some effect, but the progress of someone with this consciousness will be even more slow compared to the people who we saw in 12th chapter. Okay, verse 16, thus perplexed by various anxieties and bound by a network of illusions, they become too strongly attached to sense enjoyment and fall down into hell. Okay, so this section, so Krishna elaborates on that. We go to the next one, 19. Those who are envious, so 19 to 22 talks about the consequence of someone cultivating this nature. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are lowest among men, I perpetually cast into ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. So this is the consequence. Somebody gliding with that mentality, this is what is awaiting. Now we should not think, some religions' understanding of hell is you go there and you perpetually, there's no more end. You just perpetually struggle there, you perpetually suffer there. That's not what Krishna is saying here. What Krishna is saying here is, if we look at it from a spiritual perspective, we'll understand. We are all tiny little jivas, souls. We were enjoying with Krishna in the spiritual world. We wanted to enjoy away from him, so Krishna said, all right, go to material world. You consider this whole earthly planet as a classroom. Okay, you have to go through a certain course here to correct ourselves. We follow this process of Krishna consciousness. Then once we actually ready ourselves, once we purify ourselves of all the anarthas, what we do, we give up everything and then we go back to the spiritual world, no issue. If somebody fails to do, Krishna is saying, don't worry, I have a different course for you. Go to the hellish planets. Okay? There are different references of literally tens of thousands of hellish planets there are. So you go there, Bhagavatam touches only on a few of them. So you go down there, and then Krishna is then going to put them in a bit more rigorous schedule, like a boot camp. It's not going to be easy, it's going to be hard, but still there, Krishna will put them through a course wherein, whether they like it or not, they will be forced to condition themselves. It's a tough course to actually go through. So when Krishna says they will glide down to hell, Krishna is not saying, perpetually I cast them into hell. Prabhupada, that's why in the purport you will say, even though many demons, they glide down, they got the benefit of also being killed by Krishna and getting liberated. Okay, so hell, when Krishna uses the term hell, it's not a perpetual condemning place, not in that sense. It's just that your life is going to be difficult. Why do you want to learn lesson the hard way? So that's what Krishna is saying. Just like, sometime a parent may actually chastise the child. Hey, if you do this, I'm not going to let you in. The idea is not to kick the person out. The idea is not to kick the kid out. The idea is to inspire the kid to do this. You understand? So in that sense, Krishna is saying, if you do this, if you continue like this, I'm going to put you in hell. So the idea of Krishna is not to put them in hell. The idea of Krishna telling them is, you better get it right. Okay, you better at least attempt to do. Don't glide down solo. With compassion, Krishna is saying. Okay, Krishna is a loving God. Okay, 20. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. 21. There are 3 gates to hell: lust, anger, and greed. We discussed this before. So there is lust, and there is anger, and greed. Lust when unfulfilled leads to anger. Lust when fulfilled leads to greed. So lust, whether positive or negative, whether it's fulfilled or not, both glides down only. So Krishna says these 3 lead one to hell. So in 22, Krishna says, the man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attain the supreme destination. The problem with lust is, yes, obviously one is like it accrues any, like, a lot of negative karma and everything. But even practically, sometimes we see too many options, they actually leave us paralyzed. How many of you have that experience? Especially after Vyasa Puja feast. You go there, 200 items, Prabhu, what to do, And you just keep on adding. Sometimes, have you noticed this? You will stop watching how much you are adding in your plate. All you will see is what you are missing, and then suddenly you see, oh my God. And then what to do, Prabhu? You just sit down and you. So it happens for us. So when we start to have too many of those options, then the problem that actually happens is that our desires get distracted. So many, aneka viprachitanta, Krishna says, which means it's not focused on one thing. He just, why do you have to make a plate to eat, to subsist this body, correct? If we really need so much food for subsisting this body, it's actually not correct. So the purpose has already been compromised, you understand? Because our whole intelligence has been taken away by our lusty desires. So the problem with the desires is, apart from the karmic effect, even on a practical level, it takes away our time, it takes away our intelligence, it takes away our inspiration. Okay, we want to store that inspiration. Yes, we want to maintain this body. Yes, we want to eat tasty food. Yes, we want to keep ourselves in a more conducive environment. They are all okay, accepted. There's a good rationale behind. However, if we keep that alone as the basis, then it becomes a problem. So rather than us maintaining this body, body starts maintaining us. Body starts dictating also. That is the problem with the desires. So too many options sometimes also leads to paralysis. Okay, so 23 and 24, this is the last two verses. Krishna says, he who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attain neither perfection, nor happiness, nor supreme destination. Yes, Shastra Vidhi Mutsritya Vartate Kama Karata Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti Na Shukam Na Param Gatim. Siddhi means perfection. Na means no. So, no perfection, no happiness, and no supreme destination. So, Krishna says, if somebody, yes, Shastra Virdham Utsrijya, if one gives up the scriptural injunctions, he's going to miss all the three. He cannot actually attain perfection in this life, which means he can't actually attain happiness in this life, Krishna says, as well as in the next. He is not going to make it to the supreme destination. Okay? So the starting point comes from Scripture Study Course ki jai. So, okay, we should open the book and we should read, attempt. In all of this, if you actually see, Krishna is actually telling the condition, but Krishna is also very accommodative. He is not demanding perfection. He is not saying, you need to know all 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. I will resign and go. Who is going to do that? It's very hard to actually do. I was talking to one devotee. He said, Prabhu, I have memorized 1/4 of Brahma Samhita. I'm like, really? Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That's the 4th line in every verse. So sometimes, it's very hard in studying scriptures, doing it. If you look at the amount of difficulty which devotees go through in, or like amount of difficulties rather, which the sages actually went through to even get the mantra properly. If you see Bhagavatam, you will see, even to worship Krishna, they don't know what mantra to use. So Prachetas, first they have to go and do tapasya to actually meet Lord Shiva. Shiva will give them the mantra, then they have to master it. Then they go underwater and they have to do tapasya. Very hard. And here most of us, we came to Krishna consciousness through even holy name directly, So it's very important for us to understand how merciful Prabhupada is, how merciful Krishna is. Generally, we have this tendency that if I follow rule and regulation, what's the point? I won't actually get any rasa out of it. I won't get any enjoyment out of it. It's just too mechanical, Prabhu, we tend to think. But actually speaking, I was giving this point last week also. If you take a Ramayana, tomorrow is Ram Navami, Lord Ram, he followed every rule properly. And simply by following that rule, obviously there's a challenge in literally at every step. Not just Lord Ram, practically each of his associates. Bharata went through, Lakshman went through that, Sita Devi, Dasharatha, Kaikeyi, Sumitra, you name it. Kaushalya, every single personality they went through. However, Imagine if there is no rule at all in life. There is this tiny little jiva, and he has 360 degrees now to cover. He can go anywhere, and nothing is stopping him. Then it becomes like monotonous, like Brahman, literally. Just hypothetically, you assume that we have unlimited way to enjoy our senses. We have unlimited lifetime, one single lifetime, unlimited time. Okay? But then it gets boring. Sometimes it goes this way, this way, this way. Nothing is stopping, so you can fully execute your free will and you can keep on going. Nothing is impeding us. The way how rules work is, because of our limited free will, okay, there is a rule here, okay, you cannot eat grains in Ekadashi. Okay, so rather than letting our free will go in that direction, there is something that is actually impeding. So now we go through some short-term austerity. Okay, to practice that, to go through, it's not going to be that free, but we can still go through slowly, and then it still continue. But that experience, because of this so-called impediment that's there, that experience is actually enough for us to develop faith in scriptures. That is enough for us to bring out our higher nature from inside. That's enough for us to bring out our devotional emotions. So every rule, rather than us seeing that, okay, this is impeding my plan for happiness, we have to also understand that Krishna, when he says be humble, it's not because Krishna is envious. It's because Krishna knows we can't handle wealth. We can't handle unlimited glory. We simply can't handle. And Krishna knows we simply can't handle that. So because of that, we are not going to go back to him either. Again, going to the same verse. When you have unlimited everything. So what is given to us, it's actually just enough for us to develop that mood of detachment. What is given to us is just enough for us to turn towards Krishna, to practice devotional service. They say if you take flute makes a sound not because when you blow in the same direction as the wind. Okay? Only when the wind goes in the opposite direction of the wind, you actually get a sound there. So technically that impedance is what's actually generating the sound. That's what is creating music. So same way for us, if you take imagine of this hypothetical lifestyle wherein like, okay, I'm this little jiva, I can do anything and everything at any point of time. There's nothing that's actually going to challenge. There is nothing that's going to bring out that emotion. And if we actually carefully notice, even in our life, in Krishna consciousness, whenever we face difficulty, that's when we feel we are more of a devotee. How many of you have that experience? Because rarely we think about Krishna making that effort. We do, but somehow we feel that we are not really emoting with Krishna as much as when we go through difficulties. So rather than seeing this as impediments, we should start to see them as catalysts in our bhakti. Each of these rules. Ekadashi, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, this is Bhakti Janani, that's Ekadashi. Bhakti Janani means she who gives birth to Bhakti. So each of these different rules, regulations, and our rules are not that complicated. Quite simple, 16 rounds, follow 4 regulated principles, do devotional service. Devotional service also we have n number of opportunities. Whatever you want to do, you can actually do. Okay, so simply by sticking to this process, we can be guaranteed to go back to spiritual world. And Lord Ram, he exemplifies that. Simply following rules, there's nothing as heart-rending as Lord Ram's Charita, as Lord Ram's Ramayana, as much as Ramayana is actually able to exude, or rather bring out that emotions in us. No other scripture actually comes anywhere closer. Okay, so it's extremely important for us to understand that when Krishna says scriptures, simply to make it conducive for our bhakti. It is simply to make it conducive for our devotional emotions, devotional feelings to come out of us. That's the reason. Okay, so last verse. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty. Remember, in 7th verse we saw initially, people who are demoniac, they don't know what to be done and what not to be done. That's the 7th verse, isn't it? Yeah. So Krishna is giving answer here. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty. How? By the regulation of scriptures, by studying scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so he may gradually be elevated. Okay, so simply by following this process, one can easily go back to the spiritual world. We'll finish here. Any questions? Yes. Mm. Mm-hmm.
But what if you have knowledge and still have those demonic qualities? One. And an extension to this, when we read the Ramayana, we find that Kaikeyi was so established in knowledge, yet she succumbed to her instincts or her attachment to her son, made her do all of that.
Okay, knowledge means there is two aspects to it. One is knowing and second is understanding, or theory and realization. So if somebody has knowledge but he still does it or she still does it, it can be purely accidental also. We may not have developed enough resolve to give up everything. Like we are not the body, we know it. Are we ready to stop eating? We aren't. You understand? We are not in that capacity to be able to do that, right? So we need to understand that the knowing is one thing, that knowledge is one thing, but putting that knowledge into practice, applying that knowledge, that's what is actually going to define our character. That's what is going to define what type of qualities we are going to cultivate in ourselves. Now, in terms of what happened to Kaikeyi, for Kaikeyi, it was just an accidental slip. She was actually going very well. In fact, Dasharath Maharaj, he says that you have loved Lord Ram than even Lord Ram's own mother. He tells that to Kaikeyi. All of that is true. But then again, Bhoga and Aishwarya, when it comes to actually reacting at that point of time, wherein is it me or is it my son or Lord Ram, she ended up choosing her son, but then it was an accidental slip. But then later on, when she actually realizes, it was too late. So knowing one knowledge, so even as devotees also, we study all this different knowledge. Are we in a position to put them to practice immediately? Most of us are not. But we should start to actually make an attempt to try. Even if you can't do so much, at least little, we can actually do. So we can't brush it aside saying, oh, knowledge is not useful, because even with knowledge, people do wrong. Not in that sense. But we have to understand the reality is we have knowledge and we have only certain level of conviction, certain level of capacity to put that knowledge into practice. And that's all we are going to be able to do, and we should be satisfied with that progress. And slowly, but Prabhupada says, we can look at all the other devotees who have traversed this path in the past. There are so many who is actually following, and there are so many with us also. So taking inspiration from all of these different sources, we should follow confidently. We'll study that in Nectar of Instruction in 2 weeks' time.
Prabhu, this chapter focuses on knowledge more, but isn't association just as much as important? Giving the Kaikeyi example, because of her association, she slipped. So both are important. Like even if you don't get knowledge, you can get knowledge from your association.
Yeah. That's why we said Krishna has elaborated about each one of those aspects in all the previous 8 chapters. This is the 9th chapter he's speaking. Krishna speaks about knowledge also. Knowledge as well as association there also. Okay. Any other question?
This is the story when Lord Rama was carrying the bow and Mother Sita was narrated the story. So how was that related to like the bow and what's like
Okay, so what Mother Sita actually tells to Lord Ram is, yes, you have given up everything, you have come to the forest, but by carrying this bow, you would still be acting as a Kshatriya. But Mother Sita is saying, but we are supposed to be compassionate, we are forest dwellers. That's her point, basically. That's why she narrates the story of Indra. So just like the Brahmana, by associating with the sword, he gave up his Brahmanical quality. Her concern for Lord Ram is, you are carrying the bow all along, I want you to be soft and gentle. Okay, but with that association, you may actually give. Of course, Lord Ram is not like that. Of course, Sita also no, but this is the past time. Okay, Nara Leela. What about devotees who want to accumulate more, thinking that will facilitate them to do better devotional service? Does it fall under demoniac nature? Loaded question. Anonymous. We discussed this point before. How much is too much? So we have to understand that. Okay. Somebody who is the CEO of a company, okay, for him or her to earn $1 million a year, it's not earning too much, working too much. That's their natural, 9 to 5 job, and it is bringing them so much. So even for devotees, there is a karma aspect that's actually involved, so we need to keep that also in mind. Now, how do we know something is, Krishna uses the word ugra karmanam. They do work, really, really strenuous work, pushing themselves to do so many things. So what is coming easy for somebody as a result of their past karmic activity, even for devotees, should not be kept as a standard for everyone to follow. Okay, so Krishna has a very customized program for all of us. For some, Krishna may wipe out 99% karma. For some, Krishna may keep 90% karma. Okay, so it all depends on where we stand and how we actually progress. In principle, to think, I will actually earn money to engage in Krishna's service is good. But how much? And what is the catch there? How much, what is the full deal? unless we actually have that, it's very hard to comment on that generic question. But if somebody keeps Krishna's interest ahead and goes for earning more money, welcome, provided you don't compromise on your Krishna consciousness, don't compromise on your sadhana, don't compromise on your health, then it's perfectly all right, no problem at all. Many thanks for holding Kids Kirtan Mela ki jai. Okay. Hope these types of programs will continue in the future as well. Thanks. Yes. The plan is that kids, they have, I think, 4 times, in a year, longer holidays, like 2 weeks like that. Our plan is to have similar programs for each of the holidays. Sakshi Mataji and Anur Prabhu, they are working on that. So we are starting one tomorrow, Kids Kirtan Mela, 4 to 6. Only kids will be singing, so please do come participate in it. And we want to run, maybe we'll have a drama festival next time. We have to see. Depending on wherever the kids have interest, we'll be conducting that. But we want to keep it as a regular affair, hopefully once every quarter, if not more frequently. In your opinion, what is the difference between Ritam? What is Ritam? Is it Hitam? I don't know who. Hitam and Satyam. Krishna says Ahitam. Hitam is beneficial, basically. Satyam is truth. If one seeks artha and kama based on dharma, will they eventually gain moksha? Provided they have developed enough detachment. That's why it's a risky business. Because all of us know that Krishna says, Dushpurena nalena cha, kama is a fire, the more you pour, more it's going to actually grow more. But is that knowledge alone enough for us to give up? Did that scare us enough? Most likely not. So it takes a realization for all of us. It takes for all of us to go through that experience, to go through that journey, to be able to come to that point of eventually gaining moksha. It's risky. That's why prema is the simplest. Bhakti yoga is so simple that even a little baby in the mother's womb hanging upside down, baby can still do bhakti yoga. If the mother eats prasad, baby also gets that. If the mother hears kirtan, mother hears class, baby also hears that. So that's the topmost. Which is difficult to relinquish, conquer among Arish? What is that? Who is the Sanskrit Pandit? Okay, I don't know. I don't know the question, so I can't really answer. Okay, so one question I forgot. One devotee was asking. In one of the purports, Prabhupada was actually talking about, 7th verse, I believe, in the purport. Prabhupada was actually talking about not giving freedom to women. What does it mean? Now, in Vedic times, kings, they give protection. Vedic kings, they are required to give protection for 5 categories of people. Elderly, saintly, women, and cows. The idea is that usually when Prabhupada actually said this, sometimes it's been misinterpreted as, people saying, oh, these people are very weak. These people are not equal to rest of the people. Not in that sense. On a practical sense, if you actually think elderly persons, they are not in a position to protect themselves. They need protection. So that's the idea, why elderly come in that. Saintly, same. It's not like Brahmanas can't develop the quality of a fighting. We have 1 or 2, they made a big mark, Parashuram or Dronacharya. We have many categories of them. Vishwamitra was not a Brahmana, he was a Kshatriya. So Brahmanas, when they start to pick up weapons, it's a problem. So they are much more capable of doing, but because that's not the job of a saintly person. Saintly person's job is to simply focus on spreading the spiritual knowledge to everyone. That's the focus of saintly person. Vishwamitra, when he comes to Vashishta Muni, or rather to Dasharatha, King Dasharatha, and asked for Ram, he says, I can actually kill them myself, but I don't want to waste my time. I want to focus on doing my yogic sacrifices, so you please send me your son. So that's how he says. So saintly persons, they can potentially do, but they don't want to do. They want to focus on that. Women has, Prabhupada says, when this question was asked to Prabhupada actually says, there are things which men can do, women can't do, and there are things which women can do, men can't. Trying to actually see, or trying to bring this artificial equality in the sense of, I will do everything which, if a woman thinks I'll do everything which a man does, or if a man thinks I will do everything which a woman does, Prabhupada says that is artificial equality. Real equality means Yamuna Mataji, she goes to Prabhupada in this point and she asks, Prabhupada, or Yamuna Mataji or Govinda Dasi, one of them, Govinda Mataji, Govinda Dasi Mataji. So they ask, so Prabhupada, can't women go back to Godhead? Prabhupada says no. And then she's shocked. And then Prabhupada adds with a smile, as long as they think they are women, like that. Prabhupada also plays with the words sometimes. So women, that's actually given because women's mood, their mood is like, first of all, they are very motherly. Even if somebody has to kill, you see Draupadi, there is a person who had come and massacred her children. What is she saying? It's okay, let him go. Now somebody as a Kshatriya can't actually let that happen. You understand? So women, they have their function in their society as much as men. Men, because physically they are endowed with that masculinity, with that power, there are certain things which only they can do. Like, hard work, moving heavy weights and everything, for example. That's an activity women can't do. But women, there are activities which she can do, men can't. Like, begetting children or even keeping house properly, for example. Okay, or showing compassion. You can walk into any room and you can know whether Mataji is there or not. You know, if it's men, it's a mess. So there are things which women can do, men can't. So same way, children, because they are young cows. Prabhupada in one place, he says, women, children and cows, they are because they are innocent. Innocent means they need protection. Okay, it's very easy because women are very, very soft-natured. Prabhupada, when he tells the instruction to his preachers, he says, I want every preacher to have the heart of a British general, to be as hard as a British general and as soft as a Bengali mother. Prabhupada says that, actually. Women are very, very soft-natured. And sometimes the compassion will actually be overwhelming, more than, the discrimination sometimes. So Prabhupada says women are innocent, so they need protection. Same as with children. Children will innocently do. Same as with cows also. Okay, even if it's going to be taken for slaughter, cows will still may not actually even sense it fully. Okay, cows also are mother. So in that sense, that category is actually given. So Prabhupada, when he says freedom, in that context, Prabhupada actually says, so the women needs protection, women needs support, women needs care. So in that sense, Prabhupada actually writes. It's in the same context Prabhupada writes. You will see in some places, Prabhupada cites that again and again. In this chapter, I think 7th verse, Prabhupada actually cites that. It's already late. Just a couple of quick announcements. Tomorrow is Ram Navami, so evening 4 o'clock. Tomorrow morning, Bhagavatam class will be given by His Grace Rasamrita Gaur Prabhu. And evening, we have the program. We have a pizza stall, I heard it, I think from 10 o'clock onwards throughout the day. We have evening 4 o'clock Kids Kirtan Mela, so it goes for a couple of hours. And 6 o'clock, we have a class by Asim Prabhu. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki. And then 7 o'clock, Gaura Arati. Yeah. So that's the plan for tomorrow. And so tomorrow is Ram Navami, so please do come. Take this wonderful opportunity. And on Tuesday, I just want to offer my personal invite. It's the 70th Vyasa Puja anniversary of my spiritual master, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. So please do come. The Kirtan starts at 4:30 in the evening. It's coming Tuesday, 16th of February. Starts at 4:30 in the evening. Starts with Kirtan, 5 o'clock onwards we do the offering. 7 o'clock we do the Arati, and 7:30 we do the Pushpanjali Guru Puja, and then we serve the feast. Coming Ekadashi. Thank you very much. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki, Samabe.